I'd like to call to order our December regular meeting. We have our invocation by Commissioner Belcher as well as the pledge.
Let's all stand. I've happened to read this prayer in Open Windows, which is a Baptist publication, and I would like to repeat this prayer tonight because it seemed very good. Let's all bow our heads and pray. Heavenly Father, help us to examine our allegiances to make sure they honor you. Help us to change those that need to be changed, and help us to use discernment in our future decisions to make sure we continue to honor and worship you. This we pray in our Savior's name. Amen.
Amen.
We turn and face the flag. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, now concerning the evening's agenda. Is there a motion to approve the evening agenda?
So moved.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor raise your right hand. All opposed, 7-0. Are there any conflicts of interest pertaining to any business we have on this evening?
Mr. Chairman, I have a conflict with item number 3 concerning the Belhaven Chamber of Commerce.
Okay. We have so noted. Any other conflicts? Okay, item E, items for decision. This is old business. Is there a motion from the board? Item E.
So moved.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I have an issue with this. Section 8 in there says all ordinance or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith are hereby repealed. That's a pretty broad statement. That thing should say something like ordinances that are in conflicts are not applicable to this agreement.
What does the staff say?
This is an out-of-hand repeal.
I mean, that language, pretty boilerplate language written by attorneys, but we can certainly take a second look at it.
It needs to be qualified. It's a broad thing, and I know how this works. People will be back in here a year from now when I'm complaining about something saying, you agreed to do all that. No, I only agreed to do the repeal of whatever is applicable in conflict with this ordinance. I do not want to repeal all ordinances just because they're maybe in conflict. We're only repealing them as they are applicable to this contract.
Okay, we'll change that.
Okay.
Okay. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed? Okay, 7-0. Okay, items for presentation. Our first one is a resolution to our outgoing commissioner, Robert Belcher.
Mr. Chairman, what about item 2 on there, ratification of health department hiring?
Okay, well, I thought we were doing them all. That's my
Oh,
mistake.
you thought we did all of them? I didn't know that, but that's fine. We did all of them.
I mean, if you want to do a separate vote, that's not a problem.
I think we should do a separate vote.
Okay.
So moved.
All right, have a motion and a second. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed? Okay. Items for discussion. Presentation, I'm sorry. Resolution of appreciation presented to Robert Belcher. Whereas Robert Belcher has served as a member of the Beaufort County Board of Commissioners for 4 years, and whereas Robert Belcher has devoted his time, energy, and talents unselfishly to Beaufort County and has provided experience, professionalism, sound judgment for the community, and whereas Robert Belcher has represented the citizens of Beaufort County on numerous boards and committees and has carried out his duties both diligently and effectively. Now, therefore, on behalf of the citizens of Beaufort County and the Beaufort County Board of Commissioners, we do hereby extend sincere appreciation to Robert Belcher for his dedicated and faithful service to the citizens of Beaufort County. And we further wish him many years of happiness and good health. This 12th day of December, 2016, presented by the Beaufort County Board of Commissioners, Jerry E. Langley, Frankie Waters, Gary Brand, Commissioner Hood Richardson, Ed Booth, and Ron Buzzio, signed by yours truly, and Kathleen Moser, clerk to the board. Certainly, we will miss your service, because you have indeed added to this board, and with lots of knowledge and lots of hard work. So we just thank you for all that you have done, and I bid you Godspeed. Okay. Ms. Clerk, it is in your hands.
Turn around.
I'm going to.
You ready, gentlemen? If you have a Bible, raise your, yes. Raise your. Okay. Yep, you're good. Do you solemnly and sincerely swear or affirm that you will support the Constitution of the United States, that you will be faithful and bear true allegiance to the state of North Carolina and to the government thereof, and that you will endeavor to support, maintain, and defend the Constitution of the United States to the best of your knowledge and ability, so help you God?
I do.
Do you swear that you will well and truly execute the duties of the office as a member of the Beaufort County Board of Commissioners according to the best of your skill and ability, according to law, so help you God?
I do.
Congratulations, gentlemen.
Yes.
Yeah.
Take care. This time we'll have a fiscal year 15-16 audit presentation.
Good evening, Commissioners. The fiscal year 15-16 audit is now complete. It is ready for submission to the Local Government Commission. You have a draft copy in front of you here. Although it's not been approved by the LGC yet, we feel confident that this draft will be a final good draft and that it will be approved in the next 2 or 3 weeks. Carr, Riggs and Ingram, they're the independent audit firm that performed the audit for the second year, and their partner, Jeff Best, is with us tonight to present the results.
Thank you very much. It's good to see everyone tonight. Yep.
Can we get a copy of the report?
Yep. Yes, sir.
We need 2 of them.
You need 2 of them.
2 more, right here, Jeff.
Yeah, sorry. Well, it's good to see everyone. Appreciate the opportunity to perform the audit again this year. It's been a pleasure to work with the staff, Brian, Anita, and all the staff. If you turn to page 3, you have the independent auditor's report. It's on pages 1 through 3. I'll give everyone a chance to get their copy open. We're not going to go in as much detail this year as we did in the previous year, unless the Board of Commissioners would like for me to. The independent auditor's report has a standard unqualified opinion, which means in our opinion, the financial statements are presented fairly in all material respects. On pages 4 through 14 is the management discussion and analysis section. This is a narrative overview prepared by the management of Beaufort County. The basic financial statements begin on page 15 and they continue to page 22. The first 2 statements are on the full accrual basis of accounting, which means for the governmental activities, you have the fixed assets and you have the long-term debt. On page 15, statement of net positions, you have the governmental activities. The governmental activities include the general fund and then the non-major funds. The detail of the non-major funds is listed on pages 79 through 94. The business type activities are the water districts, the 7 water districts. Cash and cash equivalents, including the restricted cash, is $29,106,000. Included in that number is $909,000 of restricted cash. Capital assets, you see the next grouping. Capital assets for the governmental activities was $18,267,000. For the business type activities, it was $62,593,000. On page 17, is the balance sheet for the governmental activities. This statement is on the modified accrual basis of accounting, while the first 2 statements were on the full accrual. The general fund is in the first column. It accounts for all financial resources that are not required to be accounted for in another fund. If you look towards the middle of the page, the unassigned fund balance was $18,195,000. If you compare that to the expenditures on the next page, that is 31% of the expenditures on the next page. A strong fund balance is indicative of the health of the county. On page 18 is a statement of revenues, expenditures, changes in fund balance for the governmental funds. The first column is the general fund. The largest revenue item is ad valorem taxes, $31,401,000. If you look towards the bottom of the change, the net change in fund balance was a reduction in fund balance in the current year of $1,949,000. The next column is the non-major governmental funds. These funds are either capital projects or special revenue funds. They take in the grant proceeds or the funding source and spend the funding source. There was a reduction in the current year of $194,000. On page 20, it's a statement of revenues, expenditures, changes in fund balance, budget, and actual. If you look at total revenues were $1,909,000 less than budget. The biggest change in the revenues, ad valorem taxes, was $1,475,000 less than budget. Total expenditures were $2,453,000 less than budget in the current year. And we see the reduction in fund balance of $1,998,000. On page 22.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
How can tax collections be down by $1.9 million when they were
$1.4 million.
$1.4 million when they were raised? This was last year, though.
Okay, you're comparing the budget.
But still, why is it down?
That's in comparison to budget. So the budgeted amount was $1,475,000 more than the actual amount. So it's not a comparison to the prior year, it's a comparison to the budget. And why that budgeted number, actual number, is less than the budget, I'm not positive.
Why the amount collected is less than the budget.
That's right. That's right. The actual amount collected is less than the budget.
But our tax guys have been telling us that we're collecting like 95%, 98, 99%.
Yep, 98.
That's right, you're
I
correct.
just missed the budget number.
Jeff, let's take them to the back and look at the actual.
How can it miss the budget number? Taxes are the one thing that we've got a pretty good handle on as to what we should be collecting.
The collection percentage is 98% for the current year.
Yeah,
So,
and we know what we're billing. Well,
They missed it. That's all I can tell you.
Well, I can tell you is how do you miss it unless you just reach in the bag and plug a number in?
The valuation numbers may have changed a little bit. There's a difference sometimes in the valuation numbers and what we get and what gets in by the time the budget is built. We may not have all of it, or we may, those are some of the things that we're struggling with as we go through the budget process, is those numbers getting in and those valuations being firmed up, because you have some coming in, you're still waiting on some discoveries. You're still waiting on business, personal property to come in on a lot of places. So
Well,
sometimes it's low, sometimes it's high.
The problems I have with this being a negative number is it's always positive because of discoveries and all these other things going on. You know what your valuation was last year. The valuation hasn't changed in 8 years.
but, Nita and Brian, was it PCS? Did something happen?
They did. They moved.
PCS, that there was a reduction in property tax at PCS over $1 million during this past year.
Close to it,
Yep.
yes.
And that wasn't budgeted.
That must not have been considered or may not have been known. I mean, I don't know, Hood, but there was a reduction at PCS probably of over $1 million current year
Well,
compared to the previous.
Yeah, I would like at our next meeting for somebody to explain to me how we missed the tax item in here by $1.4 million.
Going to be a little bit difficult for us to explain a budget that we didn't build.
That's right. I feel very confident about this year's budget numbers, but I'm not
Ken,
able to
Ken and Mark
explain.
built this budget. We can go back and look at their notes, but I don't have a whole lot of feel for where they got their numbers from. I can tell you exactly where we got ours from this budget year.
Hood, you remember that was our troubling budget. That was the budget that we had all the.
Yeah, the guy was doing it out of his coat pocket,
Right.
and we were letting him get away with it.
I didn't know.
Yes, we did.
But if you think about, I mean, just thinking about the process, and you think PCS being down that much from the previous year, that may not have been considered when the budget was put together.
Okay. All right, proceed.
All right. So if you look at expenditures were $2,453,000 less than budget. 'Cause it is an interesting schedule, to compare current compared to the prior. And if you look at appropriated fund balance was $2,621,000, where actually the reduction was $1 million, I'll say almost $2 million. So it wasn't as large as the board approved reduction in fund balance. On page 22,
20 what?
22.
22, okay.
Yes, sir. 22 is a statement of revenues, expenses, changes in fund balance, proprietary funds. This is for the water districts. Water sales were $6,040,000 in the current year. Down towards the bottom, change in fund balances. Some of the fund balances went up, some of them went down, but there was an increase in fund balance in the current year. For all the funds combined, $246,000 for the current year. The notes to the financial statements begin on page 25. They continue to page 66. These notes explain the operation of Beaufort County. Very good information. Most every item on the balance sheet will have a footnote that relates to it. So if you had a question about it, you can go back and read the footnote and gather some more detailed information. Turn back to page 73. '73 begins the detailed schedules. These detailed schedules go all the way to page 111. This is the same information in the front of the audit. It's only in more detail. So if you had a question about something this would be where to go. Go back, you can look at the detail and get a lot more detailed information. The analysis of the current tax levy is on page 115. And Commissioner Richardson, if you look there, and that is correct, the overall property tax collection percentage for the current year was 98%. Excluded, our motor vehicles was 99.61, and even excluding motor vehicles was 97.87. So a very good collection rate. The compliance section begins on page 117 and continues to page 136. On page 125 and 126, there are 3 findings listed here. 16.1 unrecorded APs, prior period adjustment 16.2, and dealing with the general fund, and then the water district 1 through 5. Beginning on page 130, it's a schedule of expenditures of federal and state awards. And if we turn to the very last page, which is on page, or if you look on page 135, the total expenditures of federal awards for Beaufort County was $61,032,000. State awards, $31,031,000. On page 157, or beginning on page 137. But then if we turn back to page 157, and then 158, there's some items listed here as improvement points. They're not considered to be material weaknesses or significant deficiencies, but just items where improvements could be made, and there's 4 items listed here. Dealing with TANF, travel policy, calculation of water bills, and IT access controls. So that is an overview of the audit for Beaufort County for 6/30/2016. Is there any questions, or would someone like for me to go in more detail?
Any concerns from commissioners?
Well, when this is approved by the local government commission, each one of us is going to get a bound copy.
Yes, sir.
We're not going to be asked to approve this tonight.
So they're submitting it to the LGC.
Okay.
And we hope it's going to look, I mean, do not expect to have changes. Do not expect to have any changes. So the draft copy, you can keep the draft copy and look at that and go through there in details. And if you do have any questions when you go through there, feel free to call me.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to have a little more detailed briefing, if I could, on this, findings and recommendations.
I think kind of the short of it is there were 13 findings in last year's audit. Every one of those 13 findings were corrected this year. There were 4.
There are 3 findings this year. 2 of those are applicable to prior period adjustments. So if you take those out, if it had been done correctly in prior years, then really we're down to 1 finding. So I'm not satisfied because it's not perfect. I want 0 findings, but to go down from 13 to 3 is, I think, a pretty big accomplishment. And I thank you for your support and the resources you've given me to help catch up the work in the finance department. And I think that helped us accomplish that goal.
Yeah, what I can see is a lot of hard work. I mean, that's what I see on everyone's part here, but a lot of hard work trying to get things the way they should be. I mean, if you had, like Anita's saying, if you got 13 findings in the previous year, a lot of stuff going on. Some of these findings are carryover findings from the previous year. So I see a lot of hard work, a lot of good things happening, and see the county going in the right direction.
I think we should take these, and this should be an agenda item next time, to go over what anybody wants to ask about.
Okay.
I mean, I'm prepared to sit down with you individually and review anything you'd like to review also.
Well, I think individually is fine, but there's a lot of information here. It's public information. And
It will be posted on our website.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much.
I'm going to take you off of individual. Sit down.
All right, at this time, I dethrone myself.
Next,
And Gary, you dethroned too.
All right.
next, the commissioners will nominate and consider 2017 chairman of the board. Do you have any nominations?
I'll nominate Frankie Waters, Commissioner Waters, as chairman.
Any other nominations at this time?
I nominate Hood Richardson.
Any other nominations? No further nominations? Can I see a raise of hands for Commissioner Waters? I see 6. Commissioner Richardson?
You see one.
1. We have a new chairman, Commissioner Waters.
Dethroned.
Come on.
You can just switch it once you finish.
The floor is open for vice chair.
I nominate Jerry Langley.
I nominate Hood Richardson.
Anyone else? Those in favor of Jerry Langley, raise your right hand.
Was it Hood? Was it Hood? Yes.
Those in favor of Hood Richardson, raise your right hand. 2. Did I give you that sheet?
Two Jerry's side by side.
I gave you that sheet.
You're actually going to sit where Jerry is. Stay where he is. Commissioner Bozio, you're here. Commissioner Brady, you're here.
We out the door. What's up, brother? My chair, man. He said no ground. Sitting on the ground.
The next item on the agenda is public comments, and we have one person, Mr. Tommy Lilly. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Commissioners. My name again is Tommy Lilly. I'm coming to talk to you about the concern over the EMS change in the Washington Township. Just a few items that I wanted to bring to your attention again. Of course, our major concern is response time. If the unit moves to Old Ford, the response time for basically everybody along 264 is going to be a lot greater. Also, you got Cherry Road and Dan Taylor Road and Market Street that also will be negatively affected. But there's also additional support that some of you might not be aware of. I've talked to several of you. Washington currently on the major calls, as far as the higher level calls, a lot of times we'll send both units if available to give more support, but also if both units are not available, they'll actually send an engine. And remember that all of their people are trained, all except for one are intermediate or better. So that gives you additional support. That means you can also handle the situation a lot better, but also get them going a lot further. Also, in talking to a lot of the people around and Pamlico dialysis unit, they were hoping to be here tonight, but because of responsibilities, they could not make it. But I'm sure they'll be contacting you. They are very concerned about the change because they go from less than a mile response coverage to where that they're going to probably have 10 to 15 minute response coverage if it comes from Old Ford. Remember also the dialysis patients most of the time have to be transported to Greenville, which ties that unit up for approximately 2 hours, okay? So also I've heard about covering fires. Remember, if the county starts covering out in their area, if there is a fire, that unit will basically have to go and stay with that fire because of requirements from insurance and so forth, which means now we're totally on mutual aid again. So it's not just when Washington covers us, but it's everybody. So please, if you would consider some other alternatives. I think there are some possibilities. I know it's a hard dilemma, but also understand that if you continue with Washington, but also put like a QRV out at Old Ford, you can pretty much take every intersection throughout the area except for 3 would be within 5 miles of somebody responded. So please consider that and think about some other alternatives. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Items for consent. Did we get a motion on that? Okay. Do I hear a motion to approve items for consent?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I think that Jim Madison wants budget amendment for the health department pulled off the consent agenda. Is that right?
No, sir, it's not that. It's Family Connects grant, which is in discussion.
That's one of the items.
Oh,
for
okay, I'm
decision.
sorry. I marked it in the wrong place.
Do I have a motion?
I make a motion.
Got a motion by Commissioner Langley and a second by Commissioner Buzzio. All those in favor, raise your right hand. 6-1.
I got.
Do you have a comment?
I had a question. This van purchase for maintenance department, is that budgeted?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
It was included in this, it was a service expansion in this year's budget that was approved by the board, both the position and the vehicle.
Okay,
It came in under budget.
It did.
thank you.
Okay, items for discussion. The first one is by the county manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a little bit of an update on an email that I received from the district attorney, Mr. Seth Edwards. This is regarding the private labs. In his email, and this was actually an email he had written to Commissioner Richardson, copied me on it. Commissioner Richardson and I actually discussed this email. But it says, as to private labs, in reviewing the jail list from 11/23, I see only 7 inmates who technically are awaiting lab results. But all of them were just arrested in the last 2 months and are charged with drug offenses. There's 1 inmate charged with murder, and he says he was on the phone with the state crime lab today, which was December the 1st. So I expect to have everything I need in the next 30 days or less. He goes on to say, I also reached out to other DAs about using private labs, and I've not been able to determine if any others use private labs primarily, and he underlines that. I don't think they do. They use private labs in a special circumstance. As a result, I have not formulated guidelines for how this would work in Beaufort County. He goes on to say, I still think having a certified drug analyst as a sworn deputy would speed up drug prosecutions significantly, but I have no idea how much that would cost or even if the board or the sheriff want this. That's obviously your call and not mine. So that's kind of where we are with this right now.
Any other comments?
Well, I think we need to be talking to the sheriff department about what's involved in this. Again, it may be something we don't want to do, but we need to find out about it. And I had a conversation with Chief Deputy today about this, and I think that we need to be pursuing this as a part, if the district attorney thinks it will help him and it will move cases through the jail, we need to do it. 2 months, really, to me, is too long on a drug charge to be in jail without a trial. These people have become accustomed to long terms in jail before you're tried. Justice should be swift and sure, and the more swift and sure it is, the less we're going to have to apply justice, because a lot of people are vacationing in jail. So I intend to pursue that with the sheriff and the chief deputy to see what the cost is.
Any other comment?
Yeah, I have a question, Mr. Chairman. What about evidence handling? Do we have any idea how these private labs would handle that in order to protect the evidence?
I'm sure there's a standard chain of custody that they're required to do, just like law enforcement officers are required to do.
And in the cost, what Commissioner Richardson just mentioned, we would end up, if we use a private lab, we would have to pay for the analysis and court appearance?
My understanding is yes. I mean, you've got, just like if you had a local law enforcement officer who was holding evidence and walked through that chain of custody, they would be there to vouch for that. So if you had a lab analyst, they would be there to vouch for that chain of custody and present their findings.
So for the state right now, and when the state's doing our testing, there's no cost to the county?
There's no, right.
Okay. If you do come back to us with information, would you be able to compare cost, if we do decide to go any further on this, cost of the testing and the appearance vis-a-vis what it costs us to maintain somebody in the jail until the analysis comes in, and then compare that to the time it takes for the state vis-a-vis private?
I think we could try to do that. I mean, I know in one of the previous conversations we had with the district attorney, when he talked about things like DNA analysis, that it's not just one DNA test. Typically, it's 10 or 15 or 20. So, but yeah, I mean, we could try to put together kind of a standard to say this. We can try.
Mr. Chairman. Yes, you finish.
Now, I haven't made up my mind whether you want to go down this road, because to me there's some law enforcement considerations, and I think, and I know you're both looking at that the DA would have a large role to play in this, as with the sheriff's office. So thank you, Mr. County Manager. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
I can shed some light on the cost. Most of the drug tests, and you don't have to do one or two drug tests. Most of those are like $150, $175. So if you got a guy that's in jail for a week, that's $350. So the payout on this is really good for the county if you can speed the cases along. Even if you want to put an expert witness in there for a day, guy spends 30 days in jail, it's $1,500. So people have already been in there 2 months. Right away, you're making 100% on your money.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
I have a question for the Chief Deputy. Have you talked with the sheriff about this in length?
Not at length. The sheriff's up to speed on everything that we've discussed, and he's perfectly fine with us looking into what's going on. As far as a certified deputy or officer, that just came up today, so we haven't had time to look into that. But
So you don't know what the cost on a deputy for that particular area would be?
No, I'm not aware of any such deputies in this area. So we're going to try to touch base with some of the departments in the western half of the state, the sheriff's offices in the western half of the state, which probably use those more than we would in the east.
Okay.
Okay, let's move to item number 2, Bobby Parker.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Vice Chairman, and all of the members of the board, you look very good tonight. So, Mr. Langley was running around one place to the other, couldn't keep up with it. I have a property tax case with Lowe's appealing the big box stores. I gave you one sheet that you might have looked at this. There's a lot of information in it. And when you get through, I'd like to give you a recommendation of where we are and what we need to do with this. So this case has gone to the property, Winston-Salem, Forsyth County, excuse me, has appealed this to the Property Tax Commission. The Property Tax Commission did nothing with it except to rule that in the favor of Forsyth County. It's gone to the Property Tax Commission, the Court of Appeals. It's in the Court of Appeals and hoping to soon be a decision. We're tied up into this. We have an appeal with Lowe's. I would suggest that we just leave this alone and let it go to the Court of Appeals, get a Court of Appeals decision, and then we can move forward from there. But I think what I'm understanding, the Court of Appeals are going to probably be very understanding to the county. So I think we need to leave it alone and just see what the Court of Appeals rules on this.
Any comment or question? Thank you, Bobby.
Okay, thank you.
Dan, item number 3, the school redistricting study update. Commissioner Richards.
Well, I have this on the agenda because we're going into the budget season. And last year during the budget, this is not something that's totally new. Last year when we had our legislatively required annual meeting with the school board brought up that they wanted money for capital for buildings. Right away, I was interested in that. And it turns out that they have 2 modular units over at Washington High School that haven't been kept up, and they want to replace those. I'm estimating about $400,000 for 2 modular units. The problem with this is that we have within the Beaufort County school system, because of the overbuilding on the last bond that we did, we have 7,000 students and we have 9,000 seats. And anybody that wants to challenge, actually we have more than 9,000 seats. Anybody that wants to challenge that, there was a report done by an architect about 4 years ago, and that's what the report said, that we have all of these surplus seats. So we do not need to be spending money to build more buildings when you have empty seats in a lot of the schools. Some schools are as much as half empty. You have a lot of empty space out there. Another reason Washington High School is a problem is Washington High School has a lot of discipline problems. There's a lot of complaining about keeping order in the school. If you were to do some minor redistricting, everybody wants to get all excited about redistricting. I'm not talking about redistricting the whole county. I'm talking about adjusting some district lines so that those students are removed from Washington High School, so we do not have to spend $400,000 because they have seats in other schools. And we would be reducing the population at Washington High School, and as we all know, density of people has an awful lot to do when you begin to have discipline problems and keeping control in classrooms and those sorts of things. So this is on the agenda tonight as a discussion item because we requested when we met with the school board last spring that they do a study having to do with redistricting in order to solve this problem. The board virtually refused to do it right there in front of us, saying, and they've said it publicly, so I'm not violating any confidences, we won't get reelected if we do this. Well, that's not why you're elected to begin with. You're elected to do the best thing for the public and for the citizens of Beaufort County and for the taxpayers. So if this becomes a budget issue this time, it's going to be a hot item as to whether we put more capital in the schools for classrooms. 2,000 students is 2 whole schools, by the way, because you figure about 1,000 students to the school. So this is a big item, and I intend to pursue this, that we don't waste any more money building buildings for the school system. And I am requesting, too, by the way, that the school system present their redistricting. Now, we've had some really big numbers thrown at us, and a lot of people, school board members are trying to dig in on this thing. It doesn't cost $250,000 to do a study of the kind that I'm talking about. It costs very little money to do that study.
Any other commissioner have a comment?
Mr. Chairman, I do. I understand there was a meeting with the school board, I guess last year or this year, and I understand that the school board has been in contact with DPI, Mr. Chairman, And the DPI is going to do an efficiency study of the school districts, of the school, for the school board. And they will be presenting their findings to us when we have our budget meeting with the school, with the school board. I think the trailers is a separate issue, and where they've been in place maybe 20 years, and there's 4 schools that have them. When we get to the classrooms, there was a couple studies done. One was by DPI, the Department of Public Instruction, and they did one based upon square footage, and they did come up with capacity of 2,100 in access. But when you look further into it, about 1,000 of those seats are in classrooms that where they hold for exceptional children, which means you may only have 8 in the classroom, but you're still counting the empty seats of maybe 20 or 15 seats. They'll have advanced college degrees in some of the schoolrooms, so you'll have less students in that room, and you can't use those chairs for anything else. Maybe advanced calculus is another course that they'll be giving. Reading recovery for students that require that. Second language students, and you know, there's an increase in Spanish-speaking students in our schools, in some schools maybe 25%. So we have that. So when you look at that, the number from by square footage, yes, is 2,100. But when you look at it from utilization of those classrooms, it drops down to 1,000. Now, do we have empty classrooms? Yes, empty. And if you look, they're mainly in Aurora, Southside High School, Northside High School, and Northeast Elementary School. And when you look, and don't forget, we're split by a river. So there's a lot of major issues here that the school board needs to address. And they, as I mentioned earlier in my comments, they are addressing those issues, and they will be presenting a study to us that's being performed by DPI. So those are the comments I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
The one thing I'd like to see us keep in mind, and I don't have all the numbers, is of course taking care of the special needs students that we have. They require, my understanding is, more room. And so as a public school, they're taken in where charter schools and some of those schools don't have to. So I think we need to take a close look at how many special needs and the square footage that each one of those students require. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
One more go. I'm not talking about thousands of students changing in order to avoid spending this capital money. I'm talking about a few hundred students. So this is going to be a really hot political item simply because people are making it a hot political item. I'm talking about adjusting some school district boundaries to keep from spending a lot of tax money for nothing and for improving the discipline problems at the Washington High School.
We're going to move into items for decision. The first item on the agenda is the U.S. Economic Development Grant Opportunity. Dr. Tansey.
I'm going to defer to Mark Nelson as the first item, and his backup will be our grant writer, Julie.
She's really the primary.
Good evening, gentlemen, Mr. Chairman. The commissioners asked us to take a look at the possibility of moving the classroom space that we have at the Skills Center back onto campus and what it would take to get that done. We were initially asked to take a look to see if we could incorporate that into the proposed public safety training building that we were looking at constructing with state funds, state bond funds. Myself, Stacy Gerard, who is the Vice President of Continuing Education, and Wesley Adams, our Campus Operations Director, who's also our Facilities Engineer, sat down and took a look at the space that we were utilizing out at the Skills Center and what it would take to move that onto campus. We looked at the space on campus, and probably the biggest thing that we looked at is the space that we need for the welding programs, and it's about 1,800 square feet for that, and also for the forklift training that we're doing out at the Skills Center. We originally were looking at incorporating that into the new building, but when we started looking at that, we decided that we really needed to separate the disciplines with like cause. If you look on page 286 in your book, you'll see the options that we looked at. Option 1 was, of course, incorporating that into the new building. And then option 2 on the next page, 287, was relocating some space in building 8 into the new proposed building. A couple advantages of option 2, which is what we're recommending, is that we already have about 1,750 square feet in building 8 in the old John Deere training lab there, and we would need to move, I think, 2 classrooms from building 8 into the new building itself. There's already some large roll-up doors there that we won't have to install into the new building. And then the police and fire physical fitness training would also be co-located with the public safety. Disadvantages of option 1, really the biggest areas there was the loss of storage space for the training props for fire and emergency medical services, for paramedic and law enforcement programs. And then again, the other issue we had with co-locating the welding, particularly with the new building, is there's a lot of smoke and fumes come from that, and we have some sensitive medical equipment that's going to go into that building, particularly about an $80,000 training dummy. If you look at that, particularly very similar to what we have in building 12. So from the facility side, we're going to recommend that we go with option 2 and relocate the items at the Skills Center to building 8, and then add 2 additional classrooms and 2 additional offices to the proposed public training safety building. And if you look on page 292, I believe it is, you will see building 8, the workforce training lab, and the 2 classrooms that we're proposing to move the skill center items into, and then add the 2 classrooms and into the new building. Any questions from me?
Any questions on the recommendation from the community college staff?
I'll make a motion.
I have some questions.
Oh. We've got a motion.
Isn't it smart to ask questions before you do a motion?
We got a motion.
Doesn't that make sense?
We got a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Got a second. Now,
I need a clarification on the motion.
the motion was to approve the recommendation of the community college staff.
Option 2.
Is that for option 2?
Yes.
That's what we're recommending.
Okay. Hood?
Well, the most important question, is that your complete motion? You don't want to add anything to your motion?
We're going to have a separate motion on the grant.
You're going to have a separate motion on the grant?
Yes.
Seems like you guys talked about this before we got here. The most important question in making this motion to approve this project hasn't even been discussed or asked. And that's, what's it going to cost? That should be discussed before we vote on this motion. Otherwise, these guys are voting for a pig in a poke, which we do regularly. I mean, money doesn't matter. I've got some general finance question problems that I'm struggling with based on what we were told in the bond issue that we had all this $6.5 million or something out there in a bond issue that wasn't going to cost us anything. The state was going to write us a check. How does that money figure into this?
If you look on page 290, that's explained there, and I think we probably need to let Julie come up and talk about the grant that we're applying for through the county.
Good evening, Commissioners. How are you?
Good.
I think most of you know me. I'm Julie Crippen, the grant writer at the college. So,
Could you get a little closer to the mic?
So let's, I want to back up a step and then go forward a step, because the motion you have on the floor is about the options there, and this is the next one, which is the grant that I'm proposing to you tonight. So I'm going to follow your lead to make sure that we don't do one over the other.
Julie, before you say that, I guess to Mr. Richardson, you know, we were good to go with the bond the way we initially briefed you guys, but we were asked to look at what it would take to incorporate the skills center items off of Page Road back on campus. That's why we were looking at doing this. So then we're looking at different funding options as well, and that's what Julie's going to cover for us.
And back at that same meeting, Hood, you'd asked me to look at different grants to find the money. And I kind of smiled then, because getting money for grants for buildings is pretty hard to do. I mean, it's really hard to do. But there were a couple options that we've been exploring for the last 6 months and been talking to people up in Washington and down in Atlanta and everywhere. And we've come up with an option that might be a good option for us, and we wanted to present that to you. So it's the EDA grant, which is the Economic Development Administration grant. And there are 3 things that you need to know about this grant that are really important to this particular thing. One, you have to use money to leverage to use the grant. You can't just ask for a straight-out grant. They won't give you that money. So you have to have some matching funds. One of the things that's really important here is that we now have the matching funds because we have the NC Connect bond monies. So that's what we can put up to use as our leverage. The second thing is the EDA has a priority list, and they only take certain priority regions. Because of the hurricane that just happened this fall, they have pushed the eastern North Carolina into what they call a high priority distressed region. That region is given preference. So as before, we would probably not be into their preference where they even look at us for a grant. Now they have because of the hurricane. The third part that's important here is the college itself is in part of the greater Albemarle region, which includes not only the 4 counties that we serve at the college, but the greater 11 counties in that region. It goes all the way up to Currituck County. And because of that larger region that we're all a part of, we meet their third and final criteria that's not just for a select area, that it meets a larger area of eastern North Carolina. So I want to piggyback on this because I want to make sure that we have all the information. When we talk about this building and this classrooms that we're adding in, where we bring the skills center back on campus, you're voting on that second option. But the amount of money that you're talking about, and this is to everyone, I want to make sure that we understand that it's total of a $6 million project that we're talking about. But of that, currently, right now, EDA is offering a grant because of that distressed region where they would fund 80% of that and we would fund 20%. You can put in for that, but the most competitive grants that they're looking at right now are a 50-50 match. With that 50-50 match, we would put up our funds for the NC Connect bond, and then they would match that, the EDA. And I've done a lot of research on this. The most that they matched before this in 2016 was $3 million. In 2017, they're going to possibly raise that, and we won't know because we have a new administration coming in. Okay? They have not put out the funding proposal for 2017, but the people that we're speaking with, they believe that it'll be slightly higher than that. So we're looking at leveraging the funding. So instead of just using that NC Connect bond money and trying to put everything on campus with that, we can now use that money, leverage that money, and get more money to put on the campus to do the things that you've asked us to do, along with some additional things. Why would we do that? I'm a taxpayer. I know that I want to get us to have money through a grant versus a loan. So that's what I would go for first, spending the money wisely. It does not mean we're automatically going to get this grant. It's a very competitive grant. And the county would be the lead applicant because it has to be a partnership. It has to be a partnership with us and you and the Albemarle region. And I have their support letter with me that they would be, they're happy to go in on this. It helps them with their funding as well. It meets the goal of moving the Skills Center back on campus, and it also meets the goal where it would be no cost to the county commissioners for this building expansion, because you wouldn't be spending that money to relocate that in that next building. It also frees up some of our NC Connect bond money to do additional things on campus. So if we applied for that 80% match, I think that that would be an okay competitive grant to ask for, but the big one I think to do is to ask for the 50%. And that's what our county would most likely qualify for at this time. Now, there's some disadvantages to that, and it's all in your packet. That means that if EDA comes back and we apply for this grant and they say yes, we would only have 60 to 90 days to turn that grant application around and put it in. If they then accept our grant, we would have 45 days to execute all the forms. So it has to come in at the right time. Our NC bond monies, which are now available to us, that would have to come in at the same time as this to make it work. It is a little bit complicated. It's been done before. I know that others have done this. I think that we could do it also, but we need your vote on this to make this work, or your support on this. Are there any questions?
Yeah, I'm still puzzled about money. When you take the driving pad, and if you go to page 290 in our book,
yes,
you go to the driving pad is 2.7 million. The classroom building that's on there is 2.3 million. Is that the classroom buildings that we're talking about here?
That is correct, yes, sir, because...
That are these classroom buildings?
Say again, sir?
That are these I thought we were building some classroom buildings that had to do with the driving pad.
That is correct.
Are they included in the
building? Yes, sir. If you remember, I think at the last meeting, the board approved doing the driving pad, which was the driving pad and the site infrastructure for the 3 mil. Everything you see below that, the classroom building, is where we modified it to adjust to take on the skill center programs into that proposed building.
Mark, the 3.1 million in our previous discussion in the budget workshop, that was a $2 million building.
That is correct.
That was a $2 million. Here again, during the budget process, during the workshop, we challenged the community college to take a look at using more of the bond money to make capital improvements. Instead of coming to us each year and asking for 400,000 or 500 or even $600,000. I think this last year the request for a little over $600,000. And that's basically what we're trying to do. Our other option is go back to, the first thing that we talked about was a total project of $5 million, the driving pad 3, the building 2. But when we do that, we're using almost all of the bond money on this one project. So, and I serve on the facilities committee out at the college. Before the bond referendum, we tried to come up with a backup plan, a way to finance the building. And so we looked at talking with USDA. We found out from USDA that we could refinance our existing loan that we have on the Allied Health building, which is at 3.5%. Or we could have a standalone loan just on the $2 million facility. Actually, they told us they would finance the driving pad plus the building. So really what this comes down to is a way for the county to use the grant money and the bond money to do this project. That frees up more of the bond money to go back as capital improvements. So, if you're able to save, if we did the 80%, it would free up almost $4.8 million in bond money to do capital improvements at the college. So if you take 4.8 and you divide it by 400 or 300, whatever number you want to use, because we're financing capital improvements at the college every year in our budget. This would reduce that hit for probably maybe, 7 years? 6 or 7 years. So we really have, the other option that's not on here is to go back to the original deal of a $5 million project with a $2 million building and all of it coming from the North Carolina Connect bonds. But when you do that, then they're going to come right back in here in the capital budget because we cut them 600,000 in the current budget. That number is going to grow, and that comes from the funding, either the general fund or a tax increase, one or the other.
And I will say with that, there still would be some air conditionings that we would not be able to cover with that, and of course, our vehicles as well. So that would be still some capital that we would still need on that. What we were looking at doing is refurbishing probably Building 4 and Building 5, which Building 4 is the building that we're building the mechatronics programs in, that the local businesses are asking us to do and improve those areas. So that's where we would put the bond money on renovating those two buildings.
And if I may, that takes care of air conditioning or HVAC units in Building 4 alone.
Correct.
One of the things we found out when we were talking with USDA, Anita and Brian and myself, and Davenport Company, is that if we did the refinance and lower the interest rate, USDA would require us to double the loan that we have. So we had an existing balance of 3.1. So then we had to go to 6.2. So that meant we had 3.1 that would come to the college. We toyed around with using part of that money for some other need in the county, but USDA said, no, we can't do that. All of the money's got to be spent out of the college. And really, that's why we started looking at increasing the size of the public safety building. And the idea, you know, the light went off, is that we're pushed for economic development at the skill center, is that maybe we could bring the skill center training back to campus, and that would free up the skill center building, that we could show a prospective company that they could utilize that for a short period of time, and then at some point in time we could sell that building. But you know, right now our hands are tied because we need that facility to do our training. So you know, it's a win-win if we can bring that back to the campus. But the only way we can bring it back is to modify space that we have and to make this building larger. So, you know, I've been involved in this stuff with the community college on the committee, and we've had a lot of discussion on it. And the complaint we get from our economic developer is that we don't have any place that we can show a prospective company that comes in. And sometimes they need some immediate space to be able to do some things. Any other
I still have questions. Still have a question. If we do what's on the top half of this page 290, are you saying to me that there will be no money that will come out of the county's coffers?
That's right.
That's right.
That's what we're saying?
Right.
This is not going to cost anything if we can make this thing work like it is there. Is that correct?
You have a grant application.
Yeah, the grant application fee, I think, was what, $25,000? Is that correct?
That's refundable, I assume, if they don't get it.
That I don't know.
No, that I do not know.
Who did that? Who did that grant?
So, what's that?
Who did that grant?
So we haven't done it yet. What we did is put in a preliminary proposal through the Albemarle Commission to find out if they'd even look at us to fund it. And then this is what the information they've given us back, saying, yes, you would be considered for this.
Okay,
It's a federal grant.
Who will do the grant when it's done?
So the grant needs to be put in with the lead applicant, which would be the county.
The county.
Yeah, but we're paying $25,000 to somebody. Who are we going to write
I'm
the check
sorry.
to?
The Economic Development Administration, so the federal government.
Can y'all find out if that money's refundable?
I can.
Yeah, we can
Yeah, I
ask
can
that
find that
question.
out.
Julie, correct me, but because we're under a short time frame, the college is asking us to move forward on the grant, approving the grant application.
That's correct. Because of the hurricane, they're accepting applications and have put us in a higher category. When that designation goes away, we're going to be put back in with the thousands of other applications in the lower priority. So we will not have this distressed area label attached to it.
And that's tentatively late January.
She was thinking it would be late January, and she, who I'm referring to, is Hillary Sherman with the EDA. She's the representative we've been working with. So she's very knowledgeable.
Thank you. When you fill out the application, do you have to send a matching fund, 25,000 to fill it out, or is that or is that when you approve or disapprove that you pay the application fee?
You send that in with the application, and you can build that into the budget. So we can build that into the overall grant.
And since the county is going to be the leading agent in this project, do the check come through the county and it goes
That's
back and it is
correct.
administered back to your projects?
That's correct. Well,
Okay.
yes, you'd be administering the project, yes.
Now, my last question is that, and you might have answered this already, is it possible that you can use some of the NC Connect bond money for a grant application?
That's what we're using to leverage, that's what we're using to
Not using
leverage.
it all to leverage. I'm just talking about the $25,000.
We could not.
So you can't use it. Okay.
But we'll use that for match, is what we're using that for.
All right.
And then I guess they also answer Mr. Richardson's question too. As with any new building, you guys would also have to approve, the annual increases that it would cost to operate the building. And I think the other part we need to make clear too is that we're asking that if for funding option 1, if for whatever reason we do not get that grant, for the fallback for option 2 would be the USDA loan.
I got another question.
Go right ahead.
And the administrative fee, since the county is going to be the lead agent, do we get any money for administering this grant?
Yes, they have the indirect cost agreement built in, so whatever your percentage is, it's usually between 20 and 30%. I'm not sure, you would know that.
So it's just a wash, basically it's just a wash with the $25,000 application fee. Is that what you're saying?
That's a nice way of looking at it.
Okay.
I cannot answer that.
I just wanna
I'll be
figure it out.
honest, so.
Let me point out one thing. If you're not successful on the first part, you still got $3 million in bond money that you can use. You can still do this project without it costing the county any money. I mean, this idea that you're going to be saving money and all this sort of thing and squirreling money back for some other pet projects, I'm not going to be supporting a loan in any way, shape, manner, or form for this project as long as you have bond money that you haven't drawn down. I mean, that just makes sense to me to draw the bond money down and use it. And then if you need a loan for something else, we'll judge that based on its own merits. This looks to me like kind of a control thing on the part of the community college. We want to keep this money in our pocket because we're going to spend it however we want to. Well,
I'd say with a whole lot easier for us to use the Connect NC bond money and not do all this other, but we were asked to look at it. So
yeah,
that's what
well,
we did.
if the grant fails, then I'm not going to be supporting a loan, I can tell you that, because that's not smart. Not when you got $3 million laying up there, all you have to do is ask for it.
Mr. Chairman?
Are you asking us to move forward with an 80% or a 50% number, Julie?
So what is in your packet is option 1 and option 2, I believe. I need to make sure that. So what you're giving your approval tonight on is moving ahead with the grant. And then if that does not come through, if that grant does not come through, then you're moving ahead with the USDA loan. So is that clear? Is that?
No.
Okay, let me make sure we're clear. I'm not involved in the
Barbara.
second option.
Excuse me.
We're taking our lead from the EDA lady on the 50% or the 80%. She's giving us guidance to direct us so we might be able to get the grant approved.
Put you in a stronger position.
Pardon?
She's trying to put you in a stronger position.
So right now, she's kind of saying 50, but she has said it may be 80 as we progress.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I think I can support option 1, but I'm like Commissioner Richardson on this. I just can't support going and borrowing more money. I think we ought to vote on letting you carry through option 1, and then if it fails, come back to us. But I'm not going to vote to approve both of these, not tonight. But I'll support option 1.
I believe the motion was to proceed with the grant application.
Well, the motion we have on the floor in a second is to accept the recommendation to expand the size of the public safety and move the training to building number 8 that we have at the Skills Center. So since that's on the floor, let's go ahead and take a vote on the recommendation to do that. And then we'll get to the funding in a separate motion, which is what you're leading up to.
Well, I think it's backwards. I think we're doing it totally backwards. I think what's happening here is that some people are trying to lock the county into we're going to do something. And if whatever these methods fail, then they're going to come back and say, well, you voted to do this, now you have to come up with the money. We're going at the problem backwards. I think we should remove the motion that's on the floor, and we should vote to allow them to apply for a grant. Then we'll know what we're doing. Voting for this is putting us locked into a position where people are going to say, well, you voted to do this, now you have to do it, and you keep slipping deeper and deeper into the hole.
Did you make the motion? Would you remove the motion? On the option of just moving?
I think that's the best thing.
I can support applying for the grant. I don't have a problem with that.
Okay. Who's second?
Yeah.
I did.
Okay, would you agree to that? Okay, that motion's been withdrawn.
Okay, I make a motion that we go through with the 80% match for option 1.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second. All right, any discussion, question?
Well, let me point out one thing with the mumbling that's in the crowd out there. I think they would like a little flexibility in the grant rather than right on 80%. I think they'd just say, apply for the grant. Let's see what we get.
I'll change my mind.
All right.
I don't want to go in there and demand 80%, and they come back and say, walk, go ahead and walk.
Gary, you want to,
I make a
repeat?
motion that we accept option 1 and go for the grant.
Okay, and who made the second?
I did.
Okay, Ron. Any more discussion? All right, all those in favor, raise your right hand. 7-0. We have, let's see, 10 more minutes before the break. Thank you.
We don't know what we're writing for.
Yeah.
You haven't told us that yet.
You mean as far
On
as,
the facility.
Yeah, you got to tell them which one.
I'm not clear on the facility. Are you voting on the proposed
Option 1 or option 2?
What's your,
classrooms with
one.
the Skills Center going into the old
Option 2.
building?
yes.
We voted for the grant to do that. We haven't voted to build the buildings until you come back to us and we see what the financing looks like.
But they got to know what they're building.
Well,
Okay.
you can make the proposal to do whatever you want to. We have not limited you on proposing to do whatever you want to.
Pardon, can I just interrupt just for a moment? It is the county pursuing the grant, so we need to have a building sketch to give them when we apply for this grant, and we need to do this in or before February 1st. So,
You
I
have it.
think-
It's right here in the book.
okay,
Nobody's
so this
limited.
is the one that you're,
Nobody's limited you on what to apply for
Okay.
or tried to instruct you on. You can't have this, but you can't have that. You're not limited on that.
okay.
So you don't want to tell us that?
So you're looking for us to
No,
prove-
we're not going to vote and give you authority to go out and build buildings that you're going to come back and tell us, oh, now you have to finance this because you voted to do this. This is a very subtle thing that we're doing.
You're looking for option 2.
Yeah.
In order to make sense to what you're trying to do on the grant. Otherwise, you're applying for something you don't know what you're applying for.
Right, and we won't.
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chairman.
Whoa, wait a minute.
I'll
Let's
make-
have some discussion
I'll
here.
make a motion on option
These
2.
people are not limited.
Order,
They're trying to
order.
sucker this board.
Order. We've got a motion. Go ahead, Ron.
I'll make a motion that we approve option 2 under the Public Safety Training Building, page 287.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Evans. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor, raise your right hand.
I'm opposed.
I'd just like to say, I think I know where Commissioner Richardson is going. Why can't you take what you gave us tonight and write the grant for that?
If that's what you want me to do, I'll do that. I wasn't clear from the conversation that that's what you wanted. I just want to be clear what we're applying for and what you're applying for. This is a partnership. So we're applying, again, just to be clear, I want to clarify that we're applying for the proposal of option 2 with the classroom buildings. Is that correct? Okay, all right.
correct.
We're clear then.
We will be back if that fails, because on all options, we have to have your signature.
And I'm assuming within probably 60 days, you were gonna, 60 to 90?
So they said 60 to 90 days once the application is put in. So whenever the county puts in the application. And both Kathy Davison from Albemarle Commission is willing to help with that, as I am also, because the documents will come from you with all this documentation to the proposal. So,
Thank you very much.
thank you. Thank you all.
Okay, item number 2, the Family Connect grant extension has been withdrawn by Mr. Mattis. Item number 3, Mr. Parker.
He's gonna excuse himself. You're gonna excuse yourself from this one.
I think this is a continuation of what we had last month. Let me just bring you up to where we were last month. It's Diane Bowen from the Chamber of Commerce in Bellhaven did an application for exempt properties, and it was only found out that it was land. There is a building there, but they're not using it for Chamber of Commerce. Chamber of Commerce is over in another building. You also have in your packet, probably up close to the front, there is a letter from the Attorney General, Thomas Wade Burton, back in 1966, stating that his opinion, he doesn't believe Chamber of Commerce should be exempt. There's nowhere in the statutes can I see where it's exempt. This has been handed down for a long time. I think it was very controversial when the Chamber of Commerce came on. It was way before my time, but of what I can understand, it was quite controversial issue at that time. I know that there comes every now and then on our what we call the P-tax, is the Assessors and Collectors Association server. There's people ask, are the Chamber of Commerce is exempt, and we see probably 50-50, sometimes less than that, but it's a controversial issue. And now we have this found this appeal. We also, I think Mr. Alligood talked with Chris McLaughlin at the School of Government, and he definitely said they shouldn't be. Is that right, Mr. Alligood?
Said unless they met the statutory exemptions, which were educational, research, or
religious
something.
Religious.
Religious, sorry.
Religious.
Don't think that part over.
So we have our answer.
Mr.
It
Chairman.
has to be a no action item.
Question?
Yeah, I have a question. This letter in here, the other issue I understand that we have just, but I want to get back to this letter for a second, which is dated 1966, which is 50 years old. And the way I read this, does this apply currently to all chambers of these activities? They're not tax exempt? Or has there been a later clarification
That's the
in the last
latest.
50 years on this? I see a chief counsel over there going.
That's the latest ruling.
I could find no authority for it.
So this letter is still in
I think
effect?
it's still the way it is.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And the only way, Mr. Buzzy, I would see is some chamber would appeal the value, appeal it and say we are exempt, and through the proper channels and go to the Court of Appeals. And nobody has, so I can't find anything.
No, that's fine.
Well, the statute's pretty clear. They don't qualify under the statute.
Yep. Yeah, I understand that.
Yeah.
I wasn't questioning that. I was just questioning this letter 50 years ago.
So I'm assuming there's no action required. Is that,
No action.
See you later.
is that your recommendation?
Yeah, see you later.
I mean, I can't go against this, and I can't find anything to statute up.
Let it ride.
I think that at the last meeting, there was a request for a late application waiver.
Application.
And that came to you. So if you want to deny that, I guess that would
But they don't qualify for the waiver, so it's a no action item. If you take action on this, then you're setting yourself up, if they want to sue you, that you have denied them. And you're gonna go through a useless exercise because this 1966 letter and the general statutes are gonna apply. So the smart thing for this board to do is do nothing. And if they wanna make them a lawsuit, go make one. But we're not in it. I mean, I don't know why you're back in here. If I had that letter, Bobby, I never would have showed up.
We asked him to come back.
Come back, yes.
Well, I mean, the letter's all that's necessary.
I think that it was best I did come back.
We'll take no action. We'll take no action. And we're right up against our break time, and I know that Vic's gonna need probably, you can't do it in can you do it in 3 minutes? You wanna try it, or you too late?
I've got to the previous chairman told me I had to keep it within
Under 3 minutes? Well, you got it. You got 3 minutes.
It's gonna, I've got enough questions. It's gonna take longer.
Let's go ahead and take, we'll take a 10-minute break.
Are you still in Williamston? You had to call it. Are you still in Williamston?
We're back in session. Before we move to item number 4, Brian, can you send an email to the board members concerning the School of Government's comment on the tax exemption?
I can. I mean, I had that conversation with Chris, but I'll be glad to reference that. He didn't send me an email. We had a phone conversation about it.
You can get it in writing.
In fact, there's actually, he's got a blog that talks about the exemption, so I'll be glad to send that to him.
All right. We're down to item number 4, the E911 phone system replacement. Vic?
Thank you, Commissioners. I come for you tonight. We've got many items in the Communication Center, 911 Center over at the Sheriff's Office, as I made y'all aware of during the budget process, that are way past end of life as far as the time they're expected to operate. This is one of the systems this is the backbone of the 911 Center, which is the 911 phone system. This system is over twice its life expectancy has been in use. The state 911 board is just putting out now new standards for recommended replacement time, and the replacement time on a 911 phone system is going to be 5 years is what they've got proposed right now, which looks like that's what's going to pass. And I've recommended to them, if they fund it, they need to come up with a way that they come up with a plan to implement new phone systems in each 911 center in a staggered way, and just call us and tell us when they're going to put in our new phone system, and they just handle it. If they're going to fund it, they just need to handle it. But that's not the way it is right now. So to tell you where we got to, where we're at now, when I got to looking at this thing, I said, I need to figure out what it is we need. And I started looking for quotes. And I got a budgetary quote for the budget process, which was $200,000. I like fell over when I saw that. But I kept looking at it. In networking, meeting with different people around the state, it was brought to my attention that I need to take a look at a company who had a piggyback with Halifax County. I did some research. I found out that there was such a thing. After review of the county's purchasing policy, I saw that was one of the ways we could do this, was go through a piggyback and get a good deal. Well, my first quote that I got on the piggyback deal came in at, let's see here, find it here, it was $186,906. Then I made a decision, I'm not comfortable with that. I know it's a piggyback. That's the way the county policy reads, but let's look at, I want to be a good steward of the county's money, so I started reaching out to other companies. Let's see, what can we do here to get additional, prices here? So I reached out to 2 other companies. We got one came in at, well, they started at 199,000. Then the other one was 181,000. And then I sat down and started looking through all of the quotes. And in myself, I found things that I didn't feel like that Beaufort County needed. I thought it was way too extravagant for what we were trying to do in a 911 center. We're a small county of 50,000. We don't need what a county of 100,000 or 150,000 needs. So I was able to work this thing to get it down to $126,845.73. I sat down with the CFO at the state's 911 board, showed them my quote, talked to them about the funding, that the 911 board provides. They looked over the quote, and after looking over the quote, they felt like everything, they were quite amazed at the price I'd got it down to, but they thought that was all fundable. There was one piece in there that they were looking at on the text to 911, which is real important to us because we're not able to do text to 911 in Beaufort County right now with the Patriot system that's there, because the phone system at the sheriff's office will not allow us to do that with that phone system. With this piece here, we'll be able to do the text to 911, which we've not been able to do with our new phone system. So I'm here tonight to ask you for approval to use 911 funds for $126,845.73. I'd be glad to answer any questions you may have.
Well, I have some questions. Okay, what will this system do that the present system will not do?
It will do text to 911. It will give us a clear mapping when it comes up as far as the way it's bringing the information in. It'll be quicker. As anything with technology, a system that's 10 years old is going to be much quicker, much faster than what we're currently using.
Will it pick up a location of a cell phone?
It doesn't actually. The cell phone location comes in what they call a phase 1 and a phase 2 type calls. Depending on where the cell phone caller is calling from determines what phase call you get into the 911, in this case, the Vista system once it's installed. All it does is provide you the information that the cell phone is giving you. Typically, what you're getting is a capability of being able to map. With a phase 2 call, we can map probably within 500 feet of where they're at. With a phase 1 call, you're mapping the tower location. So we may be mapping the tower at Leggett Crossroads, and they may be at Horton Station and Cherry Run Road. That's quite a distance. That's nothing that this system's going to be able to correct. There is legislation in place. There's stuff coming down from the federal government that's going to require these cell phone companies to funnel the same information to this phone system so that we can get a more accurate location, just like the landline phone that's sitting up there on the countertop. But that's something that's being addressed by the federal government, requiring the phone companies to provide that. And there's a lot of other legislation that I'm aware of that's going to really enhance what we get.
How many other companies how many other counties have this system from this company?
This system here, this Vista system, is probably, I can't give you an exact percentage, but I can tell you that if I had to guess, probably close to between 80 and 90% of the counties in this state use the Vista Airbus system. It's by far the most well-recognized system. They give you the best service as far as the monitoring service. We use Airbus now with the Patriot system, and I can tell you they're phenomenal. When we have a failure, when I say a failure, that could be something as simple as something that's not working right in the system. It sends them a signal, which they have a technician that dials into our system, makes a repair, and a lot of times by the time I get to call something's going on, I got a technician calling me back saying I fixed it. I mean, they're quick. So they're very, very dependable as far as keeping the system. But I'm very pleased with what they've done for us.
We have an office in North Carolina?
Airbus is out of, don't hold me to this, I think Cincinnati. I think's where the primary.
But these are all computer repairs, so they do them
Yeah.
from up there.
Yeah, a lot of what happens today is done through the phone line.
All right. Can you get me a copy of the policy that says replace these things in 5 years?
I can get you a copy of the state's 911 board's proposed standards. I can get you that.
Yeah.
There's nothing right now that currently says you have to replace it every 5 years. What the state 911 board did is they looked at all the equipment in the 911 centers and they've come up with a standard that they may have adopted it. I'll get it for you though. But basically it says like radio, phone system, even consoles, recording systems, all these things that we use in there, they've got an end of life time on them, what they recommended replacement is.
Why are they supposing to get themselves into that? It looks to me like something that's very unnecessary.
Well, I can tell you with the phone system, I feel like it's that's your backbone of your 911 center. And it's just a piece of computer equipment. It runs 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, nonstop. And it's not going to run forever.
But if it's doing what you want it to do, I mean, most of the time, these electronic gadgets give you some signals before they start giving trouble. So, I mean, I just have a problem when you tell me it's got to be replaced in 5 years, because I've got computer equipment in my office that I've had since 1995, and it's still doing a great job.
But it's not fixing heart attacks.
Huh?
It's not fixing heart attacks.
Look, that is a lame excuse, because the same things apply as to when something needs to be replaced, not because somebody's having a heart attack. It's either beginning to mechanically fail. There's always a reason on these engineering gadgets. So, that's because people are having heart attacks. They had heart attacks before we ever had this system, and they're going to have them when it's gone. The bid process on this is a lot of money. I don't see in what you've given me where we actually have formal bids.
Well, if you read your your purchasing policy under item 7, number 13, previously bid or piggyback contract under CGS 143-129G, you can accept a piggyback on any other county government or federal government or state government contract. I took it a step further. I didn't, even with the piggyback, I said, there's got to be a way we can get this thing down cheaper. That's when I reached out and asked for additional quotes. So we even took it a step further and got additional quotes, and were able to cut, in round numbers, $70-some thousand.
Yeah, well, I congratulate you on getting the price down from what other people bid. No question about that. I'm maybe we need a copy of that purchasing policy. Maybe all the commissioners need to get a copy of that purchasing policy. You can email it to us next week, it'll be fine, or this week, that'll be fine. But I'd like to see the policy on that, because, these are big ticket items.
Any other?
I just want to clarify a couple of things.
Go ahead.
If I may, Mr. Chairman. Vic, did you say your current system is how old?
It's almost 10 years, right?
10 years
10
old.
years old.
All right, next question is, these would come out of the 911 restricted funds, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so none of this money is coming out of general fund revenue?
All this here would all be funded out of the 911 funds.
Okay, and as I recall, we have already included and approved this in the FY 16-17 budget.
We did.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
As a matter of fact, the budget line item was 200,000. Did I hear you? Was it 200,000?
The budget, $200,000 was the budgetary number that I got originally. And to take it a step further, it's important to me to be a good steward with the money, because there's lots of things that are old and outdated over there. If I can save some money there where we can turn it around and get some other things replaced, or get some updated training to help better our people, the service they're providing, I'd rather use it that way.
Any other commissioner have a question before entertaining a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Buzzio. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Brand. All those in favor, raise your right hand. 7-0. Thank you, Dick.
Thank you all.
Okay, we're down to item number 5, the lease of the county property at the Washington Beaufort County Industrial Park. Marty?
Good evening, Commissioners. I come before you tonight to
request a resolution to lease vacant county property at the Washington Beaufort County Industrial Park. This would be a joint agreement. As you know, the industrial park is owned by the city and the county, 55% county, 45% city. The lease is to the JOC Farms LLC for approximately 77.53 acres. The resolution would authorize the county manager to lease the property for a term of 1 year, and the county attorney has reviewed the lease and found it okay. The county advertised the properties in the Washington Daily News. 2 proposals for rental were received, one from JOC Farms for $120 per acre and the other from Arnold Farms for $100 an acre. And so I request that you adopt the resolution on page 303 and a lease agreement to lease the property to JOC Farms for 1 year.
Any? To approve. Got a motion by Commissioner Langley. Is there a second?
Second.
Got a second by Commissioner Hood. Sorry. Commissioner Booth. I got it right.
You done good.
Okay.
I love it. I love it.
Okay, all those in favor, raise your right hand.
Mr. Chairman, I have
7-0.
I have a question of Martin while he's up there that's relative to leasing property. What about the industrial park south? Are you negotiating to lease that?
That is already leased, and we're actually getting $75 an acre there, which is where we started. So.
Okay.
So.
Okay.
That property was leased in 2015, I remember.
I got another question.
I do. I got a question too.
For Martin?
No, I need to ask Brian a question.
Right ahead.
That property in Chalkawinity, how long is that lease for?
It's a year lease.
A year lease? Okay. So what would happen to that lease if we get to go ahead on the sale of that property?
Depends upon when he harvests his crops. The way the lease is written, just like this one is written, is the farmer's essentially going at risk. He's putting his stuff in the ground, and what we've said in the lease is he understands that, and if we sell a piece of that property, then what we'll do is we'll compensate them at the cost of whatever the crops were.
I got you.
So we'd look at the crops that he sold, and we'd say, okay, well, we took 5 acres away from you, whatever that gross was, or whatever that net was, we'd pay you for those, for that acre.
That's fair.
Is Washington in compliance with this agreement?
Yes,
It's on their agenda tonight.
it's on the agenda.
That's all.
Any other questions on the lease? Okay, if not, Martin, you've got the next item.
Right, this is for a NC Industrial Development Fund utility account grant of $337,000 to install a 8-inch water line along NC 92 to serve Heisecat and the Highway 92 East Industrial Park. I've talked to you about Heisecat before. They manufacture rigid inflatable boats out at the industrial park. They currently employ 14 people out there, and there's 10 other buildings with 8 businesses in them at the industrial park. The water service to the industrial park currently is a 6-inch line. We need to increase that to 8 inches to provide the necessary volume and pressure to operate a fire sprinkler system, which is required to support Heisecat's manufacturing and production needs. The grant will be written by, the grant application is written by the Mid-East Commission, and the grant writing fees are being split between Heisecat and the Highway 92 East Industrial Park. However, if the application is unsuccessful, the county, it's proposed that the county pay for the $3,000 grant writing fee. The $6,000 Mid-East Commission grant administration fee will be paid from grant proceeds. So I'd request that the commissioners vote to approve the resolution to apply for the $337,000 NC Industrial Development Fund utility account grant to install a 3,300-foot 8-inch water line along NC 92.
Any question of Martin? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
To approve that motion by Commissioner Brand. Is there a second?
Second.
second by Commissioner Buzzio. All those in favor, raise your right hand. 7-0. Thank you
very much.
Okay, item number 7 is the EMS contract with Washington Township. Commissioner Richardson.
Okay, somebody was challenging me as why I keep putting this thing on here. And actually, it's a live item until we do the budget this coming year, because we're still under a contract with the city of Washington, and all I'm proposing to do is that in our budget process that's coming up, that we extend the present contract that we have. If you need to tinker with it to get some additional services, that's certainly negotiable. But the way that we have voted on this contract up till now cost the taxpayers of Beaufort County $650,000. You're getting less service than you had before we did this, before we would do this contract. You're getting longer times to give service. It is not a good deal. We're increasing the cost for the city of Washington, we're increasing the cost for ourselves, and you're getting no better service for it. So, you know, I'll make a motion that the board, as a part of the budget process, consider a different contract, or to continue the contract that we have in Washington Township.
Is there a second to the motion? There being no second, then the motion fails. One of the comments is that we still have a standing committee made up of 3 members of the city and 3 members from the county, and that meeting was scheduled for tomorrow, and it got postponed. So there still is some discussion going on, if I understand.
The meeting was postponed because of new people being seated on the board.
Okay.
And yes, there are continuing discussions as that committee wants to have those continuing discussions.
So that committee is probably going to meet again in December.
Somebody else on it. We need
Okay, we've got that later. Okay, down to the budget presentation format. Again, that's
Well, you know, I realize this first budget that this team has done was last year, but we've come up short on some things that we need, and some of those items came up in the presentation of the audit tonight, and I'm sure when I read the audit report and the items that are discussed in the audit report, we're going to find more things. For one thing, the revenue that we were talking about, the $1.4 million difference in the revenue, we for the past 3 or 4 years have, as we've had new people come on board, they wanted to, some of them couldn't do anything, and some of them wanted to do their thing. And what we've done is we have lost a lot of what we had in budget preparation. And we need to get back to it, and we need to get back to having the information that commissioners need and the people that are doing the budget need in order to do a budget that doesn't have these big busts in it that we've had during the budget for the audit that was just presented to us. And one of my big things on this is that the way we present this, we need columns that present, for instance, the budget that's coming up, the 2014-15 actual, 2015-16 actual, and the 2017 budget and a projected budget. And then you can throw in there the new budget. You need all those columns on everything that you're doing so that you can make comparisons to see what was going on. Of course, you have your expansion effort, and they've done a pretty good job of presenting last year the expansion items that went into the budget. But one of the places that we come up grossly short, and that showed up with the revenue items, is we had like 1 page on revenue. Well, look, here's 2008-9 budget, and there was a sheet, several sheets. This right here is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 pages on just revenue for the county. You had that this year? I didn't see that.
It was in your budget book.
I did not see it.
You walked. I need to spend a long time working on that spreadsheet.
You walked out on it. You quit.
Maybe that's when you fell asleep.
I did not see it in my book.
Yeah, I'll show it to you.
All right. Well, we need that this time. If this sheet is properly filled out and gone up, this board did not examine that sheet. If you did, it went by you so fast you didn't know what you were doing. Because when you go through this sheet, it shows you the changes that have occurred mainly because of legislation. And what you can expect, if you go through this sheet religiously and diligently, you're not going to have a $1.4 million bust on tax collections.
I think the format that we had was similar and all that. The only thing that we didn't have was 14, 15 prior actuals. We had prior year actuals. We didn't go one more year back. You want 2 years of actuals.
Yeah, I want 2 years back.
We can do that. That's easy for us to add into. But I think everything else we kind of fit on.
Yeah, okay, well,
I'll show you that one.
You know, if it was in there, that's fine, but I just want more information than I've been getting on the budget. And for the last 3 or 4 years, the budget has been a magic act. And we need to get out of that and start doing a real budget that means something. The other thing that came out in the audit report that was presented is these $3 and $4 million swings on some things and $1.5 million swings on things. And we raised taxes this year, so we'll look at our audit next year and see if our fund balance goes up. Because if you raise taxes and the fund balance goes up, then you didn't need to raise taxes that much. And that's what I'm getting at, is a better job of budgeting. So, well, if we're in agreement, then I'm going to leave that item. I'm done.
Okay, item number 9 is yours.
Well, travel is another bugaboo of mine that is a big deal. When I first became a commissioner, all the travel that was done by county employees was you were given a list every month to approve travel for the coming month out of the county travel. And in going through that, what I found out, this is my opinion, half of the travel wasn't necessary at all. Board members, they yah-yahed back and forth because they want those votes from those county employees that they needed to be giving them more travel time. We had a manager came in, can't think of his name right now. He came in and they started playing games with the information on travel. And what we're down to now is nobody knows how much travel is costing us. Nobody knows how many can challenge unnecessary trips because the commissioners are sitting here letting their buddies take trips without somebody looking at it and saying, is it really necessary? And if you look at the trips, you will find that there have been a lot of trips that are made that are not necessary because nobody asked, is this trip necessary? The other thing that goes on, and I have to push for it, and I would like to make a motion tonight with the board's permission, is all the travel that's done by commissioners has been approved by the board in the past in the advance of the travel. We've stopped doing that. You know, if you notice, I won't take a trip unless I bring it to the board and say, you know, we're going to have permission to take this trip. And the one that I'm thinking about right now is the legislative NACO, National Association of County Commissioners, that takes place in March of each year. You know, with the board's permission, I'll make a motion now that we allow the commissioners that want to go to that to go.
We need to do Raleigh then.
We need to do Raleigh too for the legislative session there. Well, okay, I'll put both of those in there as a motion. So do I get a second?
I second for you.
Got a second by Commissioner Langley. All those in favor of the motion, raise your right hand. 7-0.
Part of my feeling on this travel thing is that the public deserves to know the trips that their elected officials and their employees are making. They deserve to be able to look at those and see how necessary they are. Because, and I would ask that the budget this coming year, we do something different with travel rather than just throwing it in there and saying, oh, it's approved, everybody can go wherever they want to. We don't need to be doing that. I want more screening of travel by this board, not by Hood Richardson, but by the whole board. Because if you're letting people go places they shouldn't be doing, the whole board is responsible. So that's what that item is about. That is a request that information be included in the budget that's coming up.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Commissioner.
During the budget process, the office heads come in with their budget, and one of their line items is travel. You as the county manager look at that each individual time. We approve the line item. When we approve the budget, we approve the line item.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes.
So we know from 2016, 2017, the line item for travel, and I think for employees was 35,000?
No, for
Give
your
or take.
department was.
Excuse me?
Overall, the entire,
Overall.
this year's budget, about 290. It's less than 0.5% of the budget.
Yeah.
And that's across all departments.
And it was
including
more, and travel was
enterprise funds.
more in 2015, 2016. It's now dropped down. So the 2016, 2017 is less, the travel budget. And, but the important thing I want the residents to know is that whole process goes from the office head to the county manager. We sit down, the commissioners sit down, go over, have the discussions, we'll go over each line item in the budget with the office heads and with Anita and the CFO and the county manager, correct?
Yes.
And the board sees that and goes through the process. Okay, I just wanted to clarify that so the residents know how the process works. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
But I'll go on to my next item here, which is the travel approval policy change. But the commissioners, sitting here as commissioners, do not know where people are traveling to or why they are traveling. And I think we need a tighter control over that. I think any travel that's in the budget, and this was a firm policy in the past, that any travel that was not in the budget had to come before commissioners. So, you know, I would make a motion that we make that as a policy change.
Mr. Richards, I think my understanding was it was it was a part of the policy previously, and then last year or before I got here, y'all actually changed that.
It was
where you didn't have to approve it every time.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
That was changed under Randall's leadership. And the reason it was changed is because some people had to be, their certification, and if they couldn't go to get their certification if we met after the time. I like some of the guys that had to go for, what's the certification y'all use? God. In-service school and stuff like that. It happened, I mean, they went before, this class was scheduled before we had the meeting. So what we did as commissioners, we gave department heads the authority to choose which one of those certifications, health department, some of the health department, water certification and stuff like that. We gave them the permission to do it during budget workshop. Once the budget is in, we approved that travel. And since that time, to my knowledge, there hadn't been any increase or hadn't been any abuse of it, because we knew that in June, July, August, that those certifications was coming due, and those people went to their certifications. That's what it was.
I don't know how we could know everything is okay if you don't know who's traveling and where they're traveling to. What you got is your head in the sand, and you don't really know what's going on, and that's what this thing comes down to. I have a request in right now to the county, and I'm making it another request. Formally, I thought we'd have it tonight, but gee, just asking for something around here doesn't mean you're going to get it. I have a request for all of the travel for the whole county for the last 12 months, and I'm renewing that request for every trip.
Right, wait a minute, let me clarify that, Commissioner Richard. You put that in as an agenda item. We didn't act on it because you put it in as an agenda item.
Yeah, you're waiting on the board to vote on it, but as a citizen, I'm asking as a citizen, so the board doesn't have to vote on it.
We're happy to do that, we're happy to do that, but the way we took that
the board's
was
not going to vote to do it.
If he's as an agenda item, so that's why I didn't go ahead and do it.
Hey,
So that's why I didn't do it.
there's three people trying to talk.
Well, okay, I'll put it to you then. I move that the board approve the presentation of a travel list for the last 12 months for each one of the commissioners.
For every employee?
For every travel, every trip. That was out of the county. I don't care about in the county.
I don't want to see it.
Is there a second? If not, the motion dies.
My request stands as a citizen.
I think just for the record, we sat through 6 nights of budget workshops. We go through each line item on most of them. There's travel in there. If you participate as a commissioner, you get a chance to ask questions. And I'll leave it at that. Okay, item number 11.
You didn't participate as a
Item number
commissioner
11, you're out of order. Item number 11, the Humane Society request. Brian?
Okay. You have a request from the Humane Society to appoint, actually, whether it was a couple of members of the board to sit on a committee with them. They have some money that they've raised or been donated to them to build an accessory building to support the animal control operations. And they'd like for the board to be involved in that. So they're asking for you to appoint someone, commissioners, to sit on that board with them so they can move forward with that project. It would be an additional building that would be built out on the parcel where the animal control facility is right now.
What I would like to see is I'd like to see somebody make a motion to, or I'll make an appointment, Commissioner Buzzio to serve on that. If we could get that approved, I guess we have to have it approved since it's an outside, or not? That, we need approval, board approval for that appointment. Okay, can I get a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Booth, is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Now, what is the motion?
To approve Commissioner Buzzio to serve on this
Committee.
Oh,
committee
okay.
for the animal control.
To build the building?
Yes.
Just, I mean, is it limited to building the building, or is he going to serve on the animal control committee indefinitely?
Well, it's called the Animal Control Committee to provide guidance with the project, which is the building of the building.
So it's a permanent appointment?
I'm assuming once the building is built, it's not.
So I think there's some opportunity.
I don't
to
care. We
expand
just need to say what we're doing. I don't understand what you're doing.
Call the person.
Do you want to serve?
No. No, but what is the motion? What did you do? We need to use the English language to say what we did. We're appointing Commissioner Buzzio to serve on the committee to give advice in the building of a building to be built out there. That's what we're doing, but we've never said that.
Katie?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
We've never said that.
Did we vote?
We're getting ready to.
Okay, all those in favor, raise your right hand. 7-0. All right, we're done. The next item on the Bath Community Rescue Squad lease agreement.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Brian?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. You've got a lease agreement between the county and Bath Rescue Squad for the use of their ambulance in the station. What they are doing is they're in the process of winding down their operations, and they have offered to allow us to use their ambulance in EMS operations that stay in the Bath area. Excuse me. They've also offered to allow us to use their building as a staging point and also as a facility to store items if we needed to, supplies and those kind of things. We would simply put that vehicle on our insurance purposes, put it on our fleet. And we have an agreement that does that. County attorneys reviewed that agreement. The board of directors for the Bath Community EMS has reviewed that agreement and they're comfortable with it, so we recommend your approval.
Any questions for Brian on the lease?
I've got one. The building is pretty clear. They're gonna maintain, keep up the building. What happens if we put 500,000 miles on this thing and we're done with it and we give it back to them? Are they gonna want us to buy them or pay them for it, or what?
Our understanding is, as they dissolve that organization, they will disperse those assets.
So we would not be expected to.
No, we wouldn't be expected to buy it from them, no. It's our
Or to
anticipation
pay
that
for it if we wore it out.
if we tear it up, we would have to pay for it.
I mean, if we tore it up or damaged it,
Right.
yes, but I mean, normal wear and tear, so we're not under any obligation on that. Okay, all right. The building was clear, but the ambulance wasn't.
Any other comments or questions? Can I have a motion to approve the?
So moved.
I had 3 people at one time.
So moved.
Commissioner Langley makes the motion. Is there a second to the
Second.
left? Second by Commissioner Brand. All those in favor, raise your right hand. 7-0. We're down to item number 13, the Finance Committee Charter. That's you, Brian.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Attached, you've got a draft copy of a Finance Committee charter for the board's consideration. This committee would be a standing committee that would be, it would include 3 commissioners, 2 from the majority party, 1 from the minority party, and then 2 ex officio members, which would be myself and the CFO. This would help the board in providing its oversight responsibilities of fiscal and financial matters. The committee would also review and approve all travel expenditures relating to the county manager and the board. This was a recommendation that came out of the auditors that we agreed with them that that was probably something you needed to do. This committee would serve as a liaison between the auditors and management if there was an issue. It would review the audit. It would have conversations if you needed to have additional things, if you wanted to bring in additional folks to look at something, that would be the mechanism by which that group would do that. So we would be glad to have any more, talk about it with you any more, answer any questions you have about it, but we'd recommend you put something like that in place.
Was this one of the 4 findings?
It was actually just an improvement point.
Okay.
When they were testing the travel expenditures. They noticed there is an exemption in the personnel policy and the travel policy for the board and the county manager as it relates to travel expenditures. So this is a way, you know, that we can have an independent committee that's reviewing those expenditures on a quarterly basis.
Any questions from?
Yeah, I have some. I don't have a problem with this. We've had an audit committee. Other than, I don't think that committee should be able to hire people and bring people in. Every commissioner has a fiduciary responsibility to the public to look after their money. And if you set a committee up that has the powers that this committee has, then they're going to go out and they're going to hire people and experts and bring them in, and then they're going to come in here and tell us this and that. Now, the school board had a system of committees. I give you an example several years ago that's been broken up now because it didn't work. The committees were too powerful. They had a finance committee, they had a building and grounds committee, and they had a personnel committee. And they had 3 members of the school board on each one of those. There are 9 members of the school board. So they divided up the empire. And what happened if you went to a school board meeting, and I've been there, is whatever committee reported, everybody else felt obligated to rubber stamp whatever they said. And basically, there was a whole lot of things going on that nobody knew what was going on. So I don't have a problem with the audit committee. I have a problem with the audit committee being able to hire experts, bring people in and do this without the rest of the board knowing about it. I think they need to come to the board for approvals before they consult anybody. So I think the wording on that is a problem, and I would really like to leave this off, table this until next month when I've had a chance to read the audit report. You know, I think it's a good idea, but.
I thought the language we had used was that the committee could recommend to the board.
I don't think it said that. I think I could probably find it by reading half of this stuff, but I think it said that the board would have the ability to bring in experts. If you can find it, we'll look at it.
No, it says recommended to the board.
That's page 329.
Yeah.
When I read it, I didn't get that.
It says request of the board, retention of independent counsel, auditors, or other expert advisors as needed to advise the committee. So they would request
It's request of the board.
Right.
Well, okay.
But I think in just about every case, we would come back if we had a recommendation, the committee.
You can't spend money you don't have, so.
Right.
That's right.
Yeah, well.
Do you?
I got one question.
Okay.
Clarify something. Go, page 331.
331, yes, sir.
Under B, review and approve travel expenditures made by the county manager and or the board. So if we approve a travel expense, it then goes to this committee for them to approve it?
Well, what I envision in that is this. Under my contract with you, you reimburse me for mileage outside the county.
Correct.
Okay? Right now, I fill out a mileage form. If I go to Raleigh for a meeting, I fill out a mileage form, I sign it at the bottom, and I say, this is business-related mileage, and I turn it into finance, and they pay me. I'd rather it go to you for you to say, okay, that's right, because the conflict that may come up with that is what you may say, someone from the outside may look at that and say, well, they work for you. Of course they're going to pay that. Well, I don't want anybody to think that. You know, obviously, I'm not going to do anything wrong. You know, I'm not going to do that. but it helps provide that second layer that says, here's somebody who doesn't work for me, looking at my expenses, saying, yes, they make sense.
But I understand that. But doesn't it also say, if we travel, it goes to this committee for approval?
It would go back to that committee for final approval. So if you went and went somewhere and you turned in your receipts, we would go ahead and pay them more than likely, because that's what we do. You have your cards. But if there was something that was disputed that said, well, you shouldn't have done that, then, which I don't think there ever is, but I mean, it gives a second look at something for that committee to look at it and say, was that reasonable and prudent?
Okay, thank you.
It's one of the things that was in the audit, not this one, I think, but one of the previous ones. It gets back to internal control. There's nobody approving
Correct.
the county manager's expense report.
Yeah, I have no issue with it.
Any other question?
Are we going to table it till we read the audit, or are we going to?
We still have to have it. I mean, that's the recommendation is to do it.
I think that's more of our recommendation. I mean, there was a piece in there that the auditor said, based on the personnel policy, the Board of Commissioners and the county manager are exempt from the personnel policy, and that includes the travel policy. So what they said was, you guys need to figure out a way to fix that. And our recommendation was that you put in this finance committee that could do that, as well as a whole lot of other things that we need to be doing.
I think we should go ahead and entertain a motion.
So moved.
Got a motion by Commissioner Booth.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Buzzio.
I want to throw one thing into this as a friendly amendment. I can support it if every commissioner is notified when this committee meets.
Oh, it would be. I mean, it's a public meeting.
Yeah, right. And you could sit in the meeting as long as you didn't participate in the meeting.
Sure. I mean, I think it talks about that they are, I think it talks about, I know it talks about it, that minutes will be held, committee may at least 4 times a year, budget is prepared. I mean, because it is a subservient committee to this board, it is a public body, so it has to be.
If it falls under notification to all of the commissioners, is there any reason to have an amendment to add to it?
Come anytime.
I mean, it's a public body, it has to be noticed anyway.
Yeah, and I want the commissioners to get a notice. I don't want to have to go read the newspaper to find out the committee's meeting.
We normally we get an email anyway.
Yeah, you're on the sunshine list anyway.
Yeah, sunshine.
But we'll be glad to do that.
All right.
Do we want to put the members in the same motion or do 2 separate motions?
Two separate motions.
Do 2
All right.
separate ones.
The first one is to approve the motion was to approve the charter, okay? All those in favor, raise your right hand. 7-0. All right. Nay, on the members of the committee, I'd like to get approval to appoint myself, Commissioner Langley, and Commissioner Brand. That takes care of 2 Republicans and 1 Democrat, requirement in this charter. Can I have a motion to approve that?
So moved.
Got a motion by Brand and a second by Buzzio. All those in favor, raise your right hand. 7-0. Okay, we're down to item number 14, County Video Showcase Program. Brian?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is the CGI County Video Showcase Program. It's my understanding that several years ago y'all did this. It's a multi-year program. We actually did it when I was in Granville. CGI is a group that is they're a preferred provider under NACO, and what they do is they come in and they will do they go to local businesses. They just ask for your endorsement, and they go out and they do videos. It's the community showcase piece where they talk about relocation, they talk about education, they talk about the different pieces. They'll put that on your website where people can click on it and see it. And what they do when they come in is they talk to other businesses about if they want to be a part of it. And that's how it doesn't cost the county anything, but that's how they make their money. So you did that several years ago with this group. and they come back every 4 or 5 years to freshen up the videos, but there has to be a new contract with them. So what they're asking for is, do you want to continue this program that you had in place before? You got a copy of the contract. That's what.
I think this is a commercial venture.
It is.
So, I mean, we shouldn't exclusively give it to them. I mean, there's some other people here, like, well, I have an interest, so I have a conflict in saying this, but there's some other people here who may want to participate in this, like Stan or the Beaufort Observer. I don't think we would want to participate, but
Hope not.
But we should not make this exclusive to these people.
I mean, that's why we come back to you to ask you, do you want to continue this program? They've come back and said, we did this program with you before. The idea is to come back in and redo it. There's no cost to the county. I mean, if you want us to put together some kind of RFP that would go out and say, I mean, typically people would come to you with this instead of us going out with it.
I don't see any point in doing that.
Outside agencies are not going to do it for nothing.
I'm sorry.
Well, they're going to sell advertising.
They're selling advertising, yeah.
They're going to sell advertising on the thing, and that's why we should not make it exclusive to them. I mean, I think Stan would like to participate in some of this. He spoke to me about this before the meeting. So I think you need to find out where he stands on this and what he would like to do. And of course, Delma does the Observer. You need to find out what he thinks or what he wants to do. I don't think we should do it. It should be exclusive. We shouldn't be shutting out people.
We're happy to do whatever the board wants to do. Like I say, y'all did this about 4 or 5 years ago. They're simply coming back and asking, do you want to re-up this thing?
And this is a link to the county's homepage?
The requirement is that you put this link on the homepage where when people go to the homepage, they see it and then click on it and it shows the little videos. When it shows the video, around the outside of the video, you'll see like people's logos, businesses' logos. And what they've done is they've gone in and they've talked to, whatever jewelry store and said, look, we're doing this in the county, we're going to showcase this. Would you like to also have one of these? And then they buy that. And then so while you're watching that, you click on that logo and it goes to that individual business and it has a little video about them. So, I mean, anybody could do that if they wanted to be in that business. Right. They're just saying, y'all have done it before. If you want us to do this again, let us know. If you don't, I mean, you tell us.
Mr. Chairman. Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the renewal of the CGI County Video Showcase Program and authorize the county manager to execute the attached contract.
Good. Got a motion and a second.
Well, I'm right back where I was before. We're kingmakers with this thing, and if you're doing this exclusive for these people, you shouldn't do it. You probably should hear from somebody like Stan back there who has his own business in Beaufort County that he expects to make money from, and we're sending this work business off to Pennsylvania or somewhere. We need to hear from the local people before we start excluding them from this.
Brian, has anybody approached you to do this other than this one company?
I haven't been approached by anybody else. Like I say, evidently, well, not evidently, 3 or 4 years ago, this board approved this. So they did that, and now they simply have come back and said, we come back every 4 or 5 years and refresh the videos. If you want us to do that again, we need to enter into another contract. And I said, I would need to take that to the board for them to approve that. So that's why it's on your agenda for your consideration.
This is one of those vendors that was at our convention, and we talked to her. I think she had told us that she had been in contact. I think she's been in contact with Katie. It's something that this is just like a renewal, and they had it probably 3-4 years ago. She was telling me at our last convention that she was going to see could she get that renewed again this time.
That's their their business model. What they do is they say it's no cost. They go around and do all this stuff. It's not like there are other people who could do that, I assume. Well, who may want to do that. I don't know.
Again, I don't have a problem, but you've got people sitting in the room right now that can do the same thing and the same kind of business. All I'm asking you to do is consult with them and not make this an exclusive contract so that they can have opportunity to participate in the same way. These people are not paying Beaufort County one dime. So you got nothing to lose.
I understand, Commissioner Richardson. You keep looking at me. I'm looking for the board's direction on this.
Okay,
You keep looking at me like I'm.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do that.
We have a motion and a second on the floor. All those in favor of the
Well,
motion?
Mr. Chairman, I have a point of order that I want to clear up. So what if the vote that you're asking for, you are excluding Beaufort County businesses from this, and you're sending this opportunity out of the county to other people? Is that what you're doing?
We're renewing an existing contract. That's what we're doing.
But you have people in this county that can do the same business the same way, and you are refusing to acknowledge their existence.
Okay. All those in favor of the motion, raise your right hand.
I ain't gonna vote for it, because you're screwing your own people.
Okay, the motion was approved 5-2.
Mr. Chairman, speaking with the vote observer, I'd like the record to show that we objected to it unless it is common domain copyright.
We're down to item number 15. The North Carolina Association of County Commissioners, the legislative goals voting delegate. Normally that's been the chairman. Can I have a motion to approve that?
I moved. Second.
Got a motion by Commissioner Brennan and a second by,
Yeah, I second.
okay, by Commissioner Booth. All those in favor, raise your right hand. 6.
Mr. Chairman, you're counting a vote for me. Procedure says that you have to ask for those who are opposed. Stop presuming that you're counting a vote for me.
Okay.
I don't appreciate it.
All right. Those that are opposed, raise your right hand.
Oh, opposed, I'm sorry, I'm not opposed.
Okay.
Am I hearing it? I voted for.
The vote is 6-1. The vote is 6-1. Okay, we're down to item number 16, the update on the election lawsuit. Our county attorney, David Francisco.
I thought it might be beneficial to you just to back up a bit and so that you understand where we are in this federal lawsuit. As you know, the North Carolina State Conference of the NAACP, the Moore County NAACP, James Edward Arthur Sr. et al. Counted up, if I counted right, 22 persons and entities were plaintiffs in this lawsuit. They sued the North Carolina State Board of Elections, all of its named appointees, employees, members of the State Board of Elections, Board of Elections of Beaufort County, Moore County, and Cumberland counties. The suit alleges violations of Section 8 of the National Voter Registration Act, 52 U.S.C. 20507, the Voting Rights Act, and the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment of the United States Constitution. Those were all serious charges. The plaintiffs sought a temporary restraining order for violations of the National Voter Registration Act only, as far as the temporary TRO. The plaintiffs allege that the boards have canceled thousands of voter registrations for changes of changes of residency based on single mailings returned as, quote, undeliverable. Also alleged that, quote, in many cases, close quotes, those votes being purged still resided at the addresses or have moved within the county and remain eligible to vote there, even though their names had been purged. The plaintiffs sought a temporary restraining order and injunctive relief to prevent further voter registration cancellations and to restore registration of those who were allegedly improperly canceled and removed from the voter rolls. A preliminary injunction is an extraordinary remedy involving the exercise of far-reaching powers only used in limited circumstances that demand it. To prevail, a party must establish four things. One, that the party is likely to succeed on the merits. Two, that the party is likely to suffer irreparable harm without the relief sought. Three, the balance of the equities tips in the party's favor. And four, injunction is in the public's interest. This lawsuit was filed on October the 31st. Hearing was conducted almost immediately, November the 2nd, and it was in the U.S. District Court in Winston-Salem, which is the Middle District. The court determined that the temporary restraining order should be issued and found that there was systematic removal of voters from rolls within 90 days, and two, that there were violations of notice and waiting period of 2 election cycles before a vote can be purged from the rolls. The hearing was conducted, as I said, on November the 2nd in Winston-Salem. Beaufort County was and is represented by Don Wright and Josh Bennett of a Winston-Salem firm. Don Wright, I believe, is on a retainer to our Board of Elections, or has been. It's pretty much all Don Wright does is this type of work. There were a couple of complicating factors involved. Neither Don Wright or myself were members of the Middle District U.S. District Court. He and I both were members of the Eastern District, not the Middle District. But Mr. Bennett is, of course. An answer to the complaint is still due. In other words, the court issued the temporary restraining order. Time is running on the answer. It needs to be filed on our behalf. Our attorneys are seeking a dismissal by the plaintiffs of the action against Beaufort County and the other 2 counties, arguing that this should be an action against only the State Board of Elections to let the counties out of it, and that's what they're trying to do. Today, we received an email from Don Wright, one of our attorneys. It says the plaintiffs responded to our request for dismissal by saying they would not voluntarily do so. I'm reading, this is Don talking, I am reading into that our motion to dismiss may not meet strong opposition. They just don't want to do it on their own. The plaintiffs offered, and we did not ask, and we accepted an additional 30 days to file responsive pleadings. That was for all 3 counties. The 3 counties are in discussion to file a joint motion to dismiss. We're having a phone conference to do that on January the 4th. The state is filing their responsive pleadings this month, so we will have the advantage of seeing that before we file. I just got off the phone with James Bernier of the Attorney General's office, who is lead counsel for the State Board of Elections and the state of North Carolina on this litigation. He states that the state will not oppose our motion to dismiss and feels such a motion has merit. So the way I think things will happen in the next few months is, 1, the State Board of Elections files its responsive pleading this month. 2, we file a responsive pleading, including a motion to dismiss in January. 3, we ask the motion to be set for argument before the court. 4, we argue it and hopefully it is granted. 5, State Board of Elections remains as a defendant. The lawsuit continues, but the county's out of it. And Don says our number 1 priority is to get Beaufort County, the County Board of Elections dismissed as soon as possible. That's an update as of this afternoon.
Any questions for David? If none, Brian, you're recommending that, Anita, that we do a budget amendment to cover any attorney fees?
That is our estimate right now.
Do we know how much?
No, we don't.
Do you have any idea?
No, it depends on how long this thing drags
But
out.
we've appropriated $25,000.
You haven't yet. We're asking you.
Oh, I thought we had.
No, sir.
Oh.
We're asking you to do that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we're asking you to do that because we don't have any funds to defend this yet.
Gotcha.
But the status, if I understood you correctly, David, is that we've asked for it to be dismissed.
We're going to ask officially that it be
Okay.
dismissed. We've had discussions. The plaintiffs will not allow it on their own motion. They're, I think, hopefully, are waiting on our motion, and then they're not going to say anything about it. And then they'll move on with the state board as opposed to the county boards.
Any other comment or question? Can I entertain a motion to do the budget?
I'll make such a motion.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Motion and second to set up a fund balance for professional fees to cover the legal cost for the Board of Election lawsuit, that their involvement. All those in favor
Whoa,
of the...
whoa, whoa, whoa. In the amount of how much money?
In the amount of $25,000.
Oh, okay.
All those in favor of the motion, raise your right hand. 7-0. Okay. All right, we're down to item number 17, board appointments. Katie sent a list in the agenda here of the different boards and advisory groups that Commissioner Belcher was on. In addition to those 7, we also have the County City EMS replacement, or he was serving on that. This is my recommendation on the County City EMS. That appointment, I would ask Commissioner Jerry Evans to serve on that and to replace Commissioner Belcher. That does not require board approval since that's a...
Whoa, whoa, whoa. All appointments, the board, we've had chairmen in the past who've gone out and done things without board approval. I've just been waiting for this to come up. All appointments come from the board. They require the board's approval. The chairman, nowhere in the operation of the board does it say the chairman has the authority to make an appointment.
I think it does.
Show it to me.
Pretty sure it
Well,
does.
we
Show
can,
it to me.
let's include all this in one motion and we'll solve the problem. Okay, the EMS oversight, I'm asking Ron Buzzio to serve on that group. The Bellhaven Pawtucket EMS, I'll serve on that. The Beaufort Hyde Martin Regional Library, asked Commissioner Jerry Langley. U.S. Highway 17 Advisory Group, Commissioner Ron Buzzio. On the Economic Development Advisory, Commissioner Jerry Evans. And on the Juvenile Crime Prevention Council, Commissioner Ron Buzzio. And on the Rural Planning Organization, the RPO, Commissioner Jerry Evans. So I would entertain a motion to approve these people to serve in the place of Commissioner Belcher. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Got a motion by Commissioner Langley. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Booth. All those in favor of the motion, raise your right hand. 7-0. Okay, we're down to the last item, which is item number 18, the 2017 Board of Commissioners meeting schedule, which you have in your package. Is there any, you've already had one opportunity to voice any concerns over the dates. Is there any change that we need to make, or do we have a motion to?
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
We go ahead and approve them, and if any changes come up, like somebody have a trip outside, you can amend them at that point in time. So I will make a motion to accept these as they are.
Okay.
At this time.
Got a motion and a second. All those in favor, raise your right hand. 7-0.
That is that we can change, we can change it.
Brian, do you have anything else?
Sure, thank you.
Declare the meeting adjourned. Oh, we need a motion, Katie. Whispers to me. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Langley, second by?
I'll second.
By Buzzio. All those in favor, raise your right hand. 7-0.
That's how I'm putting meeting in EDC.